Welcome to Talking Live. I'm Dr. Robi Ludwig here in Star Shop Studios in Times Square. We have the best guest for you today, Joey Jackson. He is nationally known and recognized defense attorney. He is also CNN and HLN's legal analyst. We have done many segments together, but he's a dear friend and has a huge fan base. So we are thrilled to have him here today to talk about the latest legal news and other news and just whatever we want to talk about.
Whatever
Joey,
it is.
welcome.
It is an honor and a privilege to be here.
Please.
And they called this Star Shop for a reason because there's a major star sitting right there.
Well, I'll tell you.
It's good to be here, Robbie. Thank you so much.
So thrilled to have you because not only are you charming, but you make the law really easy to understand.
That's sweet.
And so when I'm sitting next to you and we are talking about a case, I'm learning from you as I'm sitting and talking. I almost don't want to talk, which believe me is rare, which is very rare because I'm like, what is Joey saying? I just want to learn from him. In fact, the last case that we spoke about, it was on Erica Hill. Right?
Yes, indeed.
And it was about the girl who was abducted by a mother who raised her, and the girl who was abducted really loved this mother who abducted her and almost felt more of a kinship towards this mother than her birth mother, understandably so. And you made the great point, I don't know if you remember the point you made, that this woman, even though she was a loving mother and the daughter really loved this mother, what she did was wrong. It was a crime.
Of course.
And she almost was a showcase for what can happen when you make this wrong move.
It's unbelievable because what happens, Robbie, look, when you're pulled out and away from the family at birth, who do you know? The person who loved you, cared for you, did everything for you, changed your diaper, gave you milk, cereal, got your favorite things.
I mean, there are some that are not.
Yeah, but she was a very good mother. And so you're torn because you say, and then you find out that you've been living a lie. Which has to be, I mean, and you could speak to this, a psychological letdown.
Yes.
You are the person I loved, admired, respected. You did everything for me, and you're not my mom. You know, but there's a bond there, and so it's really tough to break. And where it comes in legally, when the prosecution says, all right, you're going to come to court, you're going to testify, you're going to say this, and you say, well, I'm not going to say that. That's my mother. But that's not your mother. But that is my mother. It may not be biological, but this is the one I know and love and trust. And I'm not going to go bury her now. So that was a really tough case.
Would you take on a case like that?
You know, it's interesting. Sort of, we do as lawyers kind of like doctors do. You know, it's like that Hippocratic Oath. If there's somebody in the street, you don't care where they're from. You don't care if they're Democrat, they're Republican. They support this one, they don't support that one. You like them, you hate them, you love them. You help them.
Right.
And so that's sort of what we do as lawyers. I mean, obviously you can be selective about what you want to get into and what you would stay away from. But when someone comes to your door, you're not a moralist. No, you proclaim to be. I'm only going to take you if. I'm only going to, you know, you try to help people. And some people are very sympathetic. And it's interesting because in any case, people are painted. I always liken cases to campaigns. And you have a prosecutor who's painting the brush. He's going to raise your taxes if you let him go, you know? So convict him now. If you don't convict him, the world will never be the same. And then you have the defense. This is a really good person. You can't convict them. They don't have the proof. They don't. So there's two campaigns that are going at it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the one that's most persuasive is the one that wins the day.
I heard it described, brilliantly so, it's kind of like story against story. The best story wins.
It absolutely is. You know, I always like to say, Robbie, in a courtroom, there are two professors. And professors can be compelling, right? Professors are telling a story, and no one's lying. Everyone is just presenting the facts in a way that is fashioned, and it's told from their perspective, right? And when you tell a story from your perspective, you marshal all the great facts, and that's what you hammer home. And the other side minimizes their bad facts, and they marshal all those great facts, and so it's two great stories. Who's going to win? And that's the issue in a court of law.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I was sitting in the CNN makeup room. This is a true story. And for some reason, the makeup artist asked me, if you were not a therapist and an author and doing TV, what would you want to be? And I'm like, God, that's really hard because I'm really doing what I want to do. And then I gave it some thought because I didn't want to let her down. I was like, you know, I think I would be a defense attorney.
You're
not
kidding
just
me.
an attorney. Because there's something about a defense attorney that's really creative. in a way that
all
to
these
me,
criminals you have to be.
It feels like the law, like contractual law, feels like just factual, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But when you're a defense attorney, it is creative. You need to look at people from that creative stance and be persuasive, which you are. So the first case I want to ask you about, it's in the news, getting a lot of headlines, and you worked with her, I imagine, because she's at CNN, Kathy Griffin.
Aha.
So just to give you a little bit of the backstory, and we did not want to re-show the gory picture because we felt that it was going too far. I felt that it was going too far, and that's not funny. I don't think anything ISIS does actually is funny. I'm not being a moralist, but it seems like there was a big backlash. And CNN, she had a very successful New Year's show that I enjoyed watching.
With Anderson Cooper.
Yeah. They were brilliant together.
He disavowed her act as well.
I thought that was
so.
really important because he's a friend and he said, I don't want to be associated with this, which I thought was a good move. Any backstory? Are you hearing anything at CNN? Can you tell us any gossip?
Of course not. We're not gossipers. I'll tell you when you shut that off, I'm going to tell you everything. No.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things, Rob. You have to be careful what you do. And she's funny and wonderful and lovely and charming and a nice human being. But I think some things you do, you really shouldn't be doing. Right. And I think certainly this crossed the line because it really is not funny, you know? And so I just think that, you know, when you exceed the bounds of humor, and I get that, you know, the shockier the thing, the funnier it could be, but this is not something that I think was in the bounds of acceptable, even if you're a humorist, even if you're someone who, you know, makes light of things. That's sort of something you probably should stay away from a whole host of reasons.
Do you think her judgment was just off, or was so pro-Hillary that somehow it led her to feel so angry that she thought it was funny?
It's hard to say. And I get that people, we live in an era where people have taken sides, right? And we have
That's
people.
All people do. And I think social media
crazy.
adds to that.
Oh, does it add
Facebook,
to it?
Of
course it does.
Everybody can weigh in very quickly.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
And instantaneously,
yes.
Right? You say something, I say something, boom, and automatically people have what they want to say as to whether they support it or oppose it. But I just think that, you know, even in humor, you have to have tact, you have to have class, you have to have taste, you have to have some modicum of respect. And when it transcends that, it just just shouldn't occur. And you just would expect something different and better from someone like her. Exactly. So it boggles the mind.
Yeah.
But then again, you know, we're in an era where it seems as though the more outrageous thing you do, the more popular it is. So maybe it was just a bad judgment call.
And maybe the people in her world are so anti-Trump, they thought it was funny.
Right.
So nobody could give her some legitimate feedback like, hey, you know, that's not really funny, or it's a large country out there, or beheading period is not funny. Maybe she just didn't have the right sense, and the people she spoke to led her down the wrong path.
You know, and it's a great point. And to that issue, and this is advice I tell people when I have the pleasure.
How am I doing as a defense attorney?
You're doing wonderfully.
Okay.
Wonderfully.
It's just
in every role.
It's just a fantasy.
But, you know, it's interesting. When you talk to people, you know, young people, people who are looking to make their way in any type of business or looking to improve, or whether it's law, and, you know, they'll ask for advice, or you'll give presentations and speeches. You want to have people around you who can tell you that that's not cool, right? You have to have it, because you need some, you know, people around you who, yes, they respect you, but they respect you enough to say that maybe we should try another way.
Yeah.
And we could question, and we could talk about it, and we could disagree.
For me,
but
that's
they can
my mother.
say something.
That's my mother,
Exactly.
and she's available for everyone
you
to
see?
weigh in, give her opinion. Jewish mother.
Amen to
that's
that.
That's what they do. But it's really true. If
It's
you
so
just have
important.
Yes people,
It's just
you're going to go down.
It's not healthy, because then there's no filter. There's no one to tell you that, you know what, taking that action is going to have consequences, and you're not going to want to go down that road. And just to be able to look you in the eye. And so it's so important. And apparently whoever was around her, they didn't give her that advice that she needed. And she's suffering the consequences as a result.
And she's going to feel this for a long time,
I think
both
so.
Emotionally and financially. And
I
I hope that she learns from it and gets through it, because nobody wants to see somebody just fall.
I agree. And I also think, you know, and regardless of what she did, horrific thing,
Horrible.
distance yourself from
Right.
it. There's no place for it.
Right.
You know, we're a society, I think, of redemption and forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I get that we're on, what did you do for me lately? How good have you been in the last 24 hours? But I think that all of us, and particularly, and I know you speak to this because it's what you do in psychology, and, you know, it's, if you have the ability to get back up, to work every day to improve, to do something better, to do something good, I think you reach that point of forgiveness. And so I'm not ready to bury her or anything else, but I am ready to say that what happened should not have.
Well, it's just like you want to say the behavior is not good, but let's separate the behavior or the off moment hopefully she had
from the individual.
The entirety of who she is or who she can be.
If we can do that, that's exactly right.
And,
yes.
And that remains to be seen in this kind of world where people are highly reactive and we like to judge and hold on to our judgments. Speaking of judgment, Tiger Woods. Okay, so I saw, I don't know if you wanted to get into the story a little bit, but Tiger Woods was pulled over in Florida where he lives. It was thought originally to be drunk driving. He was arrested, right?
Yes.
Because whatever, he was wavering and couldn't say the alphabet.
Yeah.
Is that it? Or,
so yeah.
Okay.
So here's the deal.
Here.
Absolutely. So Tiger Woods apparently has had a number of operations, and as a result of that, he has prescription medications. And so apparently he was on these medications, and they thought that it might have been alcohol, because the first time that the story broke, you saw this picture of him, this mugshot, and he looked awful.
Yeah.
It looked like he had a rough night, rough morning.
Look good.
Exactly, right? It's not like they say, pose, put your makeup on.
I'm sure there are some, but in general, not a good look.
Not a good look.
Not a good look.
So apparently he was pulled over to the shoulder of the road when the officers came, and he was part of the shoulder and the right lane. And the police reports conflict. One police report says he was blocking the right lane. The citation from the same officer says he was in the right lane and on the shoulder. So was he on the shoulder? Was he half in the shoulder? Whatever. In any event, he was sleeping in the car. So the officers approach as he's sleeping in the car with the blinker on, and they're questioning him, and he's out of sorts.
Yeah.
And so that led them to believe that something was amiss.
Okay.
As a result of that, they performed field sobriety tests, you know, walk and turn, right? You go walk 8 times,
I can't
and then
even
you
do
turn
that
on
when
the
I'm
other.
not
It's so true.
You know,
it's
when
really
I'm
hard.
sober, it's like I can't walk and turn.
That's right.
I can't do a hell of
You have
a
to
lot.
stand on one leg, right? If
Yeah.
you stand on one leg, you have to touch your nose, you have to recite the alphabet backwards or whatever they have to do.
Yeah.
So he failed that miserably.
Okay.
And as a result of that, the first day they were saying, oh, he was drunk, he should have known better. But then it came out that it was prescription medication, and it may have been, and this will be a defense, that some of the medications were contraindicated and he had a bad reaction. So in English, he took one medication and he took another medication because he was in pain, and they didn't agree with each other. And as a result of that disagreement, it didn't agree with him.
Do we know what medications he took?
It's listed in the report, and there's a whole slew of medications. There's several. And it says, though, in fairness, it gives a host of medications, including Vicodin, but it says he didn't take this year. Now, as to whether that was truthful, whether it was not, whether he was just giving the officers a list of medications that he generally takes.
So he had a whole list of medications,
there were a list
he didn't
of them.
take this year?
It says he claims he didn't take them this year. Whatever.
Okay.
But it also says,
He just had them?
He apparently was on medications. But he also submitted to a urine sample. So he gave a urine sample. So the toxicology report will come back and it'll show it's what. Which leads to a great debate I had with a dear friend of mine, exceptional lawyer who practices in this jurisdiction. I will not say who he is, but he called me. He was nice enough to call me and say, look, let's talk this out. Because I've been hearing what your remarks about this, and I have a disagreement. So we argued on the phone this morning.
What did you disagree about?
And here's the disagreement. The disagreement is whether the state should be prosecuting a case that's predicated upon prescription medication.
I have some thoughts about that.
So, awesome. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, so doctors now, at least in the state of New York, I can't speak to Florida because I don't live in Florida. But doctors are told, especially psychiatrists, but I'm sure this is true for pain medication doctors, especially because they give the really good stuff, right?
The good stuff.
They will often tell a patient, if you're taking this, do not drive.
Yes.
do not do anything where you need to be awake and alert.
Yes.
It is how they are instructed to give the medication to the patient with a warning.
Yes.
So the question is, was he told about that warning and he somehow didn't consider it?
So let me put my defense hat on.
Okay.
Let me put my defense hat on.
But you hear where I'm coming from.
100%.
Okay.
Not only do doctors tell patients, but
Yes.
on the bottle itself, there's a warning that says,
Yeah.
don't drive, don't operate heavy equipment, etc. However, I hasten to add two things. The first thing that everyone needs to know is that that warning is as protection to the people who are making, producing, and giving this drug. In other words, if you go out and hurt someone, don't come back to me as the manufacturer and say it was the drug that did it, because I warned you not to get in the car.
Yeah.
So it's a liability issue, meaning there's a notice issue. I'm getting to that.
Okay.
There's a notice issue in as much as you're providing notice to the person you're giving the drug to.
Yes.
Don't do certain things. Okay,
Right.
You're giving them notice, but they're giving notice to protect themselves from liability. Step two. You're telling people they shouldn't drive. You're not telling them they're going to be arrested and prosecuted if they do. There's a distinction between telling people not to drive because you might hurt someone because you're drowsy, as opposed to telling them what you're doing is criminal. Now, final point, Robbie. All right, and we'll argue about this.
On medication, you will be arrested.
So, but no, here's the point.
Yeah.
I think there's a major distinction between someone who consumes alcohol voluntarily and
That's
is
true.
partying, or
Absolutely.
someone, not only alcohol, but someone who's like, you have any weed, you have coke, you have heroin,
Yes.
because you're doing it for recreational purposes,
True.
for your own entertainment and to feel good,
Right.
versus the guy or woman who's like, oh, my back, Robbie, it's horrible. You know what? I need this medication. Mm-hmm. You take your medication, how you feeling? Robbie, I just don't feel. Take another one. You take something else, that'll make it feel better. Now you're driving home, and now I'm a criminal because a doctor prescribed a medication that I took for non-recreational purposes, not for euphoria, not to make myself feel better, do better, or to get me into a different frame of reference or mind. I took it because I was hurt. The guy had 4 back operations. He had back fusion. He's got a knee or whatever else it is, that was operated on, and now you're a criminal because you've had medications in your system that didn't agree with you. And so all I'm saying is, in the event that there are, or can be established, that his medication taken was within the therapeutic limits, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, that there was an adverse reaction to those medications, then in my view, I don't think prosecution's the answer, because I believe that it's wholly distinguishable, if I haven't made that point yet, from someone who acts like a you-know-what and is drinking or doing heroin or cocaine or doing those things because they want to, as opposed to someone taking medication because they have to. And that's my point.
Here's the danger, though.
Yeah.
Those pain meds are highly addictive.
Yes.
So there's a problem. So somebody can be prescribed medication from a doctor, told how to take it, and then they're in pain and they start to, it changes their brain chemistry, and they start to take it because it feels good.
They're abusing
or
it.
Or they're avoiding the pain. It's just, but I hear you. I mean, there's certainly questions here, and I don't think that we should jump to conclusions
Of course
that
not.
Tiger is a criminal by any means, and hopefully he's feeling better. But just so people know out there, doctors do hopefully say.
They warn
and
people.
And they also will say, don't take this medication with X medication.
That's right. That's right. They get into it with them. But I'm a
things
firm
happen.
believer, and also in the argument I was also having, because the statute itself, the legal statute in Florida, apparently they still prosecute people in Florida who take pain medication or prescription drugs, but it says that there are exceptions for those who have an injury or who have some disease or ailment. So all I'm saying, as everyone's running and everyone has an opinion, as we know on Tiger, that there's wholly different things between someone who voluntarily consumes drugs and recreational and someone who needs to take them because they're feeling bad.
I gotcha.
There we go.
I gotcha. And just to say also that he could have hired a limo, but maybe he just wasn't in his right frame of mind.
That's the thing that I don't get. And not even that, because you're worth $750 million.
Right. I would
there's,
take a limo.
There's Uber, there's Lyft, and they have nice cars. You can get the SUV version. You
so
can get
nice. I like living them.
Yeah, so that's my pitch on Tiger. So I just think that at the end of the day, I think the prosecution needs to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And the final thing I'll say is he was pulled over to the side of the road. And you know, Robbie, when you're tired, that's what they tell us to do.
Yes.
To pull over to the side of the road.
That's true.
So it's like the guys at the side of the road.
To the side of the road, that was responsible.
You know.
Because that's what you should do if you're feeling tired. So I hope it works out for him, and he should hire you, really.
Let's go. Tiger, we got this. I'm going to come to Florida.
Joey's your guy. He'll even maybe play golf with you. I don't know if he plays golf. I don't play golf, but I'll be here for you, too. Speaking of giving out medications, Bill Cosby.
Oh, wow.
I find this so sad. I'll tell you why I find it sad. And we have a picture back here of Bill Cosby in the old days. And why I find it sad is because I really think Bill had an important message to share that I thought was so valuable, both just in general and to the communities that he reached out to. And what's interesting here is what really sunk him was a comic who was making
Hannibal
fun.
Buress.
Yeah. So sometimes comedy can break through a resistance in what you want to know about somebody and convey a very powerful truth, and that's what did him in, which is so fascinating.
Absolutely.
So what he made his living doing as a comedian ultimately sunk him, but it was his behavior that sunk him. Serial rapist, do you think he's going down in prison? Do you think he should?
I think that he certainly, he's got a fighting shot in this case.
Oh, really?
I think he does. I think they were able to get a jury from outside of that jurisdiction. They're going to bring that jury 300 miles away.
Wow.
I think his defense team was somewhat concerned. They made challenges based upon there not being enough African-American jurors and the prosecution excluding them. Why? Because just so everyone knows, there's social science research which suggests that there's a very strong racial component when you're selecting a jury. Oh. And for guests who don't know this, the O.J. Simpson jury didn't start this way. Always got to bring up O.J.
Yeah.
But it ended this way. There were 9 African Americans and 1 Latino. He was acquitted, of course.
Yes,
And so there's that strong component. There's 2 on his jury.
Yeah.
There's 2 of the 12 are African American, and then there's 2 of the 6 alternates that are as well.
How many women?
There are less women than men. I believe there are, what is it? It's either 8 men and what is it, 4 women or 5 and 7?
Because I don't care what race you come from.
Or
if you're a woman, you're going to have a powerful reaction.
You are, but you know, it's interesting because it cuts both ways, and we were arguing over this point. I mean, women are going to have powerful reactions because many have experienced the horrific nature of being, you know, beautiful and being run a line to and harassed and don't think that's so cool. On the other hand, someone was saying that women could be tougher on women and more judgmental about women, and as a result of it, maybe it cuts the other way.
Yeah, that's true too. We know that women can be judgmental. Okay, I'm just going to do something really quick because I know that we are running to an end. We do a segment called Keeping It Real, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Keep it 100.
Okay, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
I wanted to be a baseball player.
Oh, okay. So what made you change your mind?
Didn't have the talent. Or an actor, one of the 2.
I don't believe that. But our win, anyway. What are your 3 biggest life goals now?
My 3 biggest life goals are I want to be, I mean, and everybody says this, but I want to be happy. I want to smile every single day. I want to laugh. I want to be in joy. Number 2, I want to be at peace. And number 3, I want to travel the universe.
I love it. I love it. And you're certainly on your way. And what is a skill that you'd like to learn and why?
You know, I want to brush up on a couple of things. Number 1, I think that I should brush up on my languages. You know, I mean, I think
that's a goal of mine.
It's such a big world out there. And I started off, Robbie, when I was in college studying French. J'ai étudié pour mon cours de français tous les temps, you know. But then I learned, right, there are other languages. I'd like to learn more Spanish. I'd like to be better at the 3 phrases of French that I speak. So that when I travel, like is one of my life goals, I can communicate with the rest of the world.
I love it. Well, we're going to check back with you to see if you've met those goals. And where can people find you? What are you working on now?
Well, things are great. We're at HLN for the majority of the time because CNN is more Trump-based, although I was on CNN yesterday talking about
Oh,
Tiger.
I saw
but
that.
so I'm usually,
I saw that.
I'm on HLN. I'm on Erica Hill's show from 1 to 3. I'll be there tonight on Ashley's show, Primetime Justice at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So tune in Mondays through Wednesdays, 1 to 3. You'll probably see me on Erica Hill. If you don't, her show's wonderful anyway. So
Yeah,
stay
we love
tuned there.
Erica.
And then the next one is Ashley. I do her show a couple of
Great.
times a week too. So
Well,
yeah.
they're lucky to have you.
And weekends on CNN. I'll do weekends on CNN too.
And we
so.
are lucky to have you. And you
I
are
am
a
luckier.
blessing.
I am luckier to be here
You're-
in this star shop. You are a star. You're amazing. And thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, thank you. And if you have any questions for Joey, I will pass it along. And you can certainly leave it on my Facebook. Otherwise, you know where to find him. Thank you for finding us, and we will see you on Monday.
See ya.